Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 3 2015 NFL predictions. Before I start this video, I'd just like to tell everybody that I'm dealing with a cold over the weekend. So, as I'm doing this video, my voice might go up or down, or I might have some coughs. So just understand that I'm not feeling well while I'm doing this video. Well, this week so far, I am a slightly respectable 8-7 so far, and overall for the year now I am 18-13, which equals about 59-60%, which is after 2 weeks nowhere where I want to be. But this has been one of the crazier week 2s. I remember last year around this time, week 2, I had a 7-9 record to end the week. So maybe there's a certain mystique about week 2 and my predictions that that doesn't make them go so well. But what a crazy week 2 in the NFL. So many big upsets that happened that I did not expect coming, that I did not expect to come, such as the Rams losing 24-10 to the Redskins, the Jaguars beating the Dolphins on a last second field goal, 23-20, the Raiders getting a nice touchdown drop against my Ravens, even though I am kind of frustrated with Will Hill getting that holding penalty in the end zone for that interception, but I digress. That's what seems to happen this year with us. The Falcons getting a big road win over the Giants, 24-20. And just a lot of other, crazy, games that I didn't expect to happen. Like Dallas or Philadelphia, and I'll get into that when I do all my picks and my thoughts. But yeah, what a crazy week too. I know a lot of other prognosticators, especially on the NFL YouTube prognosticators page. Shout out to all those guys: Gio Knows, Billy B, Poet Kid Mikey. I know I'm forgetting Philadelphia. I know I'm forgetting a lot of other guys, but I want to mention all you guys. If any of my viewers are really big into what I do, or into this kind of field of betting games, go to the Facebook page. It's a great group of people that enjoy the same kind of activity that I'm doing to all my viewers, which is talking about football and predicting it. I'm going to get into my Week 3 picks. So, on Thursday, when the 1-1 Washington Redskins go to the 1-1 New York Giants, I'm going to take the Washington Redskins. And then on Sunday, when the 1-1 San Diego Chargers go to the 1-1 Minnesota Vikings, I am taking the Minnesota Vikings. When the 1-1 Oakland Raiders go to the 1-1 Cleveland Browns, I am taking the Oakland Raiders. When the 2-0 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 0-2 Baltimore Ravens, I am taking the Cincinnati Bengals. When the 0-2 New Orleans Saints go to the 2-0 Carolina Panthers, I am taking the Carolina Panthers. When the 2-0 Atlanta Falcons go to the 2-0 Dallas Cowboys, I am taking the Atlanta Falcons. When the 1-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 0-2 Houston Texans, I am taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When the 0-1 or 0-2 Indianapolis Colts go to the 1-1 Tennessee Titans, I am taking the Indianapolis Colts. When the 1-1 St. Louis Rams host the 1-1 Pittsburgh Steelers, I am taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. When the 1-1 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 2-0 New England Patriots, I am taking the New England Patriots. When the 0-2 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 1-1 or 2-0 New York Jets, I am taking the New York Jets. And when the 0-2 Chicago Bears go to the 0-2 Seattle Seahawks, I am taking the Seattle Seahawks. When the 1-1 Buffalo Bills go to the 1-1 Miami Dolphins, I am taking the Buffalo Bills. When the 1-1 San Francisco 49ers go to the 2-1 Arizona Cardinals, I am taking the Arizona Cardinals. And then on Sunday night, when the 2-0 Denver Broncos go to the 0-2 Detroit Lions, I am taking the Denver Broncos. And then on Monday night, when the 1-1 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 2-0 Green Bay Packers, I am taking the Green Bay Packers. Alright, time for my thoughts on each game. Redskins and Giants. I was very disappointed in the Giants because, again, they had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. They played another overall solid game against a very good Falcons team. And it just seems like, their defense couldn't get a stop. And their running game, they should have got Shane Vereen involved more. He had really only one big catch in the game, and I think he had about 70 yards rushing. So he did a great job, but one thing that I keep realizing is that they only have one big playmaker, and it's Odell Beckham. They targeted him 10 times in the first half. They only targeted him twice in the second. I don't understand, or I understand why you could do it. Double team him and you basically have the offense figured out. But that's just a problem that I just keep seeing. And I just keep seeing a team that is choking games away. The Giants have now choked 2 games away that they should have won, and I just don't like that aura. Well, on the other hand, the Washington Redskins, for a one-on-one squad, have looked pretty good. They only they've averaged 20 points in their 2 games on defense, and that's 10 points a game. That's pretty good. Especially against the Rams team that really I had to question now after they beat them by 14. Nick Foles only threw for 150 yards. Tavon Austin was their leading rusher again. He had 70 yards rushing. That's a huge problem if your wide receiver is your leading rusher. And Matt Jones had a very impressive game. I think he had that big 39-yard touchdown run. Good for him. I think he had about 100 yards overall. But I'm just taking the Redskins because, and I remember last year, I think week 3 again, the same exact time, the Giants actually went to the Redskins and they blew them out 45-14 or 45-17 because that was the big Larry Donnell game. Nobody knew who Larry Donnell was until that game where he caught 4 touchdowns. But I'm taking the I'm taking the Redskins because I just believe that from what I've seen in their 2 games, they've looked more impressive as a unit than what the Giants have. Could the Giants win this game? Yeah, they could. They have Eli, and Cousins could still be turnover prone, even though he didn't have a turnover. He didn't have a turnover yesterday, which is really impressive. But I'm taking the Redskins because I've been really impressed overall with how the team's done. And they just had a huge win over the Rams. They could be in for a letdown, but I'm just not sold on the Giants having a winning mentality to win this game coming off a short week where they got embarrassed again. Should be a good game, but I'm going to take the Redskins just because I've been more impressed by it. That's why I'm taking the Redskins over the Giants. The Vikings over the Chargers. This one was tough for me because I was kind of rattling or kind of tossing back and forth both teams. San Diego had a impressive road performance. Congratulations to Phillip Rivers, by the way, for passing Dan Fouts, the all-time San Diego Charger touchdown number at 256. That's a tremendous accomplishment to have. And it's more impressive because he's been a Charger his whole life. Just like his whole football life. Just like Dan Fouts was. So, congratulations to him. But it was something where San Diego offensive line came in and again had trouble. I think they sacked Rivers about 4 or 5 times, maybe one or 2 more times, I don't know. It was like, but I know they got him at least 4 or 5 times. And Keenan Allen had a huge muff punt, which set them back a bit. And I just was kind of overall not sold on this team, especially on the road, going against teams. Where Minnesota, on the other hand, I saw the Minnesota Viking team that I wanted to see in week 1. They were running the ball really well. AP had over 100 yards, 100 all-purpose yards, which was really impressive. Teddy Bridgewater had a nice, solid game. He had a rushing touchdown and a throwing touchdown. They caused about 3 or 4 turnovers, which was really impressive, which they really needed. And the 2 main reasons why I'm taking the Vikings is they just played a Bengals defense, and the head coach of the Vikings was the former defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. So, with that being said, I think Phillip Rivers will see a lot of the same looks. That might be a negative for me taking the Vikings, because I would say, like, oh, okay, the Bengals do this and the Vikings do this as well. But, at the same time, this is Minnesota at home. They have a lot of momentum. And I think that Minnesota can get one more drive together or cause one more fumble or one more turnover. It might not be Rivers, but I think Minnesota, with that defense and that confidence coming off that game against Detroit, can get this win over San Diego, who just seems like at just any moment they'll have one big gaffe or one big, mistake or one penalty that always ends up costing the game, and on the road, and especially on the road. And I think this is another one of those games where that will happen. Oh, and by the way, I think the Bengals did get extremely lucky with that one fumble that the Chargers recovered that they ended up picking up back because of the tuck rule. But I thought they got rid of the tuck rule last year. I don't know. They brought it back. Excuse me, guys. Like I said, I'm sorry. This is not how I like to talk. But I'm taking the Vikings, or about Dalton. Yeah, so I think the Bengals got extremely lucky. But I'm taking the Vikings because the Vikings have a similar defense to the Bengals. And I think they can cause the same amount of havoc to the Chargers. I think AP can have another great running game. And I remember the last time in AP's rookie year, he ran 297 yards on this Chargers defense. I know this team's completely different, but just remember that Adrian Peterson's had success on running against the Chargers before. The other time they had McNabb, and that was just a whole sham that year. And I think that was McNabb's last game, actually. But I digress. I'm taking Minnesota. Similar defense. They're at home, and I trust them more at home. San Diego's still on the road. And I think San Diego will have one more gaffe than Minnesota will. That will give the Vikings this win and a nice 2-1 start for the Minnesota Vikings season. That's why I'm taking the Minnesota Vikings to beat San Diego Chargers. Oakland and Cleveland. I'm taking Oakland just because of strength of victory. Because I have to tell you, as a Ravens fan, I was incredibly incredibly frustrated and disappointed by how our defense played against the Derek Carr-led Raiders. We let them score 37 points. Or 38 points on our defense, which was incredibly disheartening, especially, besides Amari Cooper. We let Andre Holmes, Michael Crabtree, and a bunch of other no-name wide receivers do damage on us. Latavius Murray, a guy that had one big breakout game against Kansas City. He had a really good game. And I just was more impressed by that than what I saw in Cleveland. I'm not saying that Cleveland had a great game. Cleveland had a phenomenal game against Tennessee Titans. Johnny Manziel, congratulations on getting his first win. He threw about 220 yards and had 2 big touchdowns to a Travis Benjamin, who was the MVP of the game, because he also had a return touchdown. So 21 of the 28 points Cleveland scored were by Travis Benjamin. So kudos to you, sir. for having that big of a game. But again, like I said, I just feel that Oakland had a more impressive performance against a better team than what Cleveland did against Tennessee, because even though, again, Cleveland may be more talented and they're at home, and they've now won 2 back-to-back home openers for the first time, I think, in a while. So congratulations for Cleveland. But I'm going to go with the Raiders because I just think that's more impressive what they did. Because both teams did horrible in week 1. Cleveland got blown out 31-10, and Cincinnati blew out Oakland 34-13. But when I look at this game, I see that the Oakland team, and this is the main point I have, Oakland's win was more impressive against a better team than what Cleveland's was. Could Cleveland shut down Oakland? They could, absolutely. Could Derek Carr struggle? Yeah, he could. And can Cleveland win this game? Absolutely. But I'm just going to take the Raiders because this is a motivated Raider team with a very loaded defense, a decent secondary, not as good as Cleveland's, and I think they have a better running game by a slight edge. Again, this is kind of an awkward game because both teams are not really, expected to go far. They're both kind of expected to stay in the cellars of their divisions. And I just even remember before the season started, I wasn't really looking forward to this game. Of how the teams have played over the last couple weeks, especially last week, this game has a lot more intrigue. But I'm taking the Raiders just because, again, I was more impressed with their win than I was with Cleveland's. Even though, again, congrats for Cleveland getting 5.5 sacks and a few forced fumbles on Mariota, who, by the way, had his first rookie game, which I'm not going to bash Mariota that much on because, again, he's a rookie. So that's why I'm taking the Oakland Raiders to beat the Cleveland Browns. Bengals over Ravens. Cincinnati Bengals had a very impressive game against the San Diego Chargers, like I talked about earlier. Andy Dalton had 2 touchdowns in the first half, which I was incredibly impressed by. He had that nice touchdown to Marvin Jones in the second half. The defense got a game-winning interception, which was a nice play, by the way. I was kind of a little concerned when Jeremy Hill went down. I hope he's okay. I don't know what the extent of the injury is, or even if he was hurt. But when I look at the Bengals and I look at the Ravens, first of all, the Bengals have swept the Ravens last year, and they've won the last 3 straight. Let's see. The Bengals have all their talent with them. We still have our number 1 pick Perryman. Our left tackle Eugene Monroe has concussion. We don't have Suggs, obviously. So I think we have a lot of injuries. And I remember last year Cincinnati was our home opener and we lost then. And also I just feel that the Ravens, I don't know really what their identity is. We have this. I have this feeling of we have played up to our competition in both weeks and we showed what we can do. And let me explain that. The Ravens played the Denver Broncos week 1 and actually held the Broncos to with no offensive touchdowns for the first time in the Peyton Manning Denver era. That's incredibly impressive, but at the same time, we didn't score any offensive touchdowns, and we ended up losing 19-13 with that last second interception by Darian Stewart. So let's flip the script here. So now we go to Oakland, and we put up 33 points by our offense. But then our defense that didn't give up a touchdown to the Raiders, or to the Broncos, gives up 38 points. And on the third play of the game, gives up a 69-yard touchdown pass to Amari Cooper. So, as a Ravens fan, this might be, I have this feeling of, who are we? Can we be a high-powered offense? Can we be a shutdown defense? I don't know. But the one thing that I do know, the one thing that's in common with both games is, we didn't win. Whereas with the Bengals, who beat the crap out of the Raiders, in Oakland as well, we're able to beat the Chargers, and we're able to beat the Raiders. So when I look at that, I just see that the Bengals have a more talented team, and there's just more of a vibe to me. The Bengals are stringing wins together. They have a 3-game consecutive streak of on their side. And I just feel like the Bengals will get this win because somehow we're going to play up to the competition again. And we're either going to not be able to get a game winner, or we're going to give up a game-winning drive that we can't capitalize on. Again, it should be a great game. Bengals-Ravens, always a great game. It's always fun to play Marvin Lewis again. But I'm taking the Bengals just because I just have a bad feeling about the Ravens. That for the 3rd week in a row, we're going to play up to them, and we're going to be really competitive. But again, just like the other 2 weeks, we're going to lose. So that's why I'm taking the Bengals over the Ravens. New Orleans at Carolina. I'm taking Carolina just because Carolina, has gotten easy. It's gotten off pretty easy, if I do say so myself. Just because they played Houston, and again, it was another lackluster, kind of gritty performance. Ryan Mallett threw it 58 times and had 2 turnovers, or I think the Texans had 2 or 3 turnovers overall themselves. I just was not that impressed by that. I knew that they could beat Houston just because, Mallett just couldn't really do anything. Their leading rusher at 32 yards. But kudos to them, though. Cam Newton had a big rushing touchdown, but again, just another problem that, again, at quarterback, Cam was their leading rusher and passer. That's a problem. Because when Jonathan Stewart only gets about 68 yards, or just like 60 yards, and your quarterback has more, that's a problem. But, again, just like with Jacksonville and Houston, so you can say that Carolina's gotten a bit of a benefit, which I'll admit, to their schedule. They're playing a New Orleans team that let Tampa Bay, who looked like straight garbage the first week of the year, go into their house and play a much better game that I expected them to play in week 1. How does that happen? How does a Bucs team that was down 21-0 at a half week 1 against Marcus Mariota's Titans end up having a 17-7 lead at New Orleans against Drew Brees? I don't get it. But so when I look at New Orleans, I see this again, another bad vibe. None of their offense is really working well. They fumbled the ball 3 times. Brees threw a horrible interception, and it just seems like anything New Orleans does, it either ends in a gaffe or a fumble or a penalty. Rob Ryan and Peyton don't really know how to manage everything now, it looks like. And it's a whole bunch of, misconception that I'm not sold on. In Carolina, I remember last year on Thursday Night Football, New Orleans went to Carolina and beat them 26-10. This team is different now. I think there's a different vibe. I think Carolina's got some momentum on their side. They have more talent. I hope Luke Kuechly comes to play, but I'm just taking Carolina just because I've been more impressed on an overall ground of football they have played against these bad teams over the last 2 weeks than what I've seen out of New Orleans. Could New Orleans win this game? Yeah, they could. They have Brees. They have a lot of talent, around that they could compete with this Panthers team. But when it comes down to it, I just got to go with this Panthers team just because they're just they're a little more talented. And sorry, guys, I wish I didn't feel this bad, but it's been a rough weekend. They have a more talented squad, and they just have a better sense of winning and knowing how to win games than what the New Orleans Saints do right now. So that's why I'm taking the Panthers to beat the Saints. Atlanta over Dallas. I'm just taking Atlanta because Dallas has way too many injuries and suspensions. It was actually, to me, quite a miracle that the Dallas Cowboys won that game. And I'll talk about that more. I'll talk more about the Eagles side. That the fact that they didn't have Dez Bryant, Greg Hardy, Randy Gregory, Ronald Leary, Tony Romo for the second half, Barry Church went out of the game. Des Bryant. The list goes on and on. And they still were able to beat a team by 10 points about. So kudos to them for being able to play the Eagles that well, even with all those injuries. So you have to give Dallas credit for that. But they are now playing a fully loaded Atlanta team, even though I do feel bad for Telvin Coleman, who went down with a pretty with a knee injury. I don't know how bad it is. Hopefully it's not torn ACL. But I just feel that Atlanta, they are playing at a level that I thought they could play. Dan Quinn's got this defense playing really well. They're getting stops, they're getting more pressure, and they're being able to have more of a bend, not break mentality. But they can give up yards. And again, like I said earlier, they gave up a 63-yard touchdown to Odell Beckham. So that's not a good thing. But that didn't hinder them from the victory. And they were still able to, after they scored the game-winning touchdown, they were able to hold off the Giants and get a huge win and get Matt Ryan's first victory ever at MetLife Stadium. So I think Atlanta's been very fortunate to go on this huge NFC East run to start the year because they already played the Eagles, now they played the Cowboys, now they're playing they played the Eagles and Giants, and now they're playing the Cowboys. And I just think, again, combined with all the injuries that Dallas has, I just think that Atlanta has way too much talent all around for them to get this win in Dallas. I think Dallas could put up a little bit of a fight. It's Dallas, and Rod Marinelli's defense could still be effective. I'm just not so on it that with those offensive weapons, with the corners they have, and the lack of pass rush they're going to get, Matt Ryan should have a phenomenal game. And this Falcon team should win pretty convincingly, just because of Dallas' injuries. So that's why I'm taking the Falcons to beat the Cowboys. Tampa over Houston. This was, to me, very hard. You got two quarterbacks making their third starts. Excuse me, guys. I need to take a drink here. So. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Tampa and Houston. This game is very interesting to me. You got two quarterbacks making their third start. Mallett and Winston. Arian Foster probably could come back this week, which I think will be big. But this to me is I'm going to try to do this again. I might get screwed, but I'm going to say it again. I think Tampa has more talent, and they've done more than what I've seen out of Houston. And for people out there that want to bash Ryan Mallett already, say, "Oh, Ryan, Ryan didn't do anything. He was garbage. It's only his second. It's only his third start. Give the guy some time to try to do something. And just remember, they were on the verge of possibly tying that game. If Brian Hoyer was in there, there would be no way that he could have done anything. But again, I look at these two teams. You got two very solid defenses that can cause havoc. Two even secondaries. The running game, you give advantage to Houston if they get Foster back. If they don't, you give Tampa that, but it's not by much. The biggest thing to me is wide receivers. You got Hopkins for Houston, and you got Evans and Jackson for both of them. And again, if you saw the game in New Orleans, James Winston was extremely happy to have Mike Evans back because Mike Evans made a lot of huge plays that helped bail Winston out. Out of a lot of bad situations. So again, this is kind of a crapshoot game. Could Houston win this game? They could. But I'm taking Tampa just because they have the better wide receiving core. And I think that Winston, he can carry this momentum of the 2-touchdown game. Because he also had a rushing touchdown, which was pretty impressive. Even though, again, he did that in the preseason too, which was kind of surprising because I thought Mariota would do that a little bit more. But I'm taking Tampa just because I think Winston has a little bit more potential than Mallett. Because I guess he's a rookie and he's already kind of shown a better way to do things. And also just wide receivers. So, again, should be a great game, but that's why I'm taking Tampa to beat Houston. Indy over Tennessee. even if the Jets beat Indy, which could happen with how this week's going on, I think the Indianapolis Colts will beat the Titans, just because I saw Mariota kind of have those rookie moments, and I think if they can get any kind of pass rush going against the Titans, against the Titans, they can get Mariota flustered. Again, they do have to worry about Mariota's mobility and his poise, but I think Indy has way too much talent, even if they lose to the Jets, to say against that Titans defense with the weapons they have that they can't do anything. Also, Andrew Luck is 6-0 against them. I think this is going to be the most competitive game the Titans have had since Andrew Luck got in there, I will admit that. But Indy's defense should be able to maybe cause a turnover or get enough pressure to get Mariota flustered a bit, and enough that they can win this game. And that's all I have. So, if the Jets beat the Colts, that could change things a bit. I think it could be more competitive for Tennessee. But I'm taking Indy because I just believe that even if they lose to the Jets, they have too much talent not to beat this Titan team. And I think they'll get their momentum started to roll just like they did last year against this Titan team. So that's what I'm taking the Colts to beat the Titans. Pittsburgh over St. Louis. I'm taking Pittsburgh to beat St. Louis because I officially have put St. Louis in the pretender category. Just because I do not know how anybody can beat the two-time NFC champs and put a 34-point high on the Seattle Seahawks, and then the very next week go to a stadium that the last time you went there, you shut them out 24-0. With all the talent that was still there, okay, and it was Cole McCoy who was starting, but then go back a year later and you lose by 14 to a Redskin team led by Kirk Cousins. Nick Foles threw for Nick Foles threw for 150 yards. What? Tavon Austin had 70 yards rushing, and he led the team. The Redskins had almost 100 yards rushing. Kirk Cousins outplayed Nick Foles, and he won. So, why? Why should I take them over a Pittsburgh team who absolutely annihilated the Niners, who were coming off a huge 20-3 win over the Vikings? Big Ben had about 380 yards, 4 touchdowns. Antonio Brown had 9 receptions, 195 yards, and a touchdown. D'Angelo Williams had 3 touchdowns and but 90 yards. Thank God I put him on my fantasy team, which was huge. But with how Pittsburgh's defense played, they got a lot of great pressure on them. I think they had about 4 or 5 sacks. They only held them to about 3 points going into about the fourth quarter. And then the Niners just kind of gave. The Steelers gave up some garbage time TDs that nobody really cared about. But I'm taking Pittsburgh just because I really like that offense going against that St. Louis defense. If Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson can do to that defense what they did, just imagine what Big Ben can do with Le'Veon Bell back. With Le'Veon Bell back this week. Like, my God, they could put up 30, 40 points. They could even put up 50 points against this defense. But I didn't play. And I still think with Nick Foles that he can match that. I know they're at home. And also, by the way, this is one of the Super Bowl rematches of the week. I just don't buy St. Louis anymore because I lost a good amount of respect for them after losing to the Redskins, and where they should have never lost. Okay, you could argue with me about they were coming off a high. That's fair, but I just was not sold on this on this Rams team because I just think you had to win that game. If they were able to whip the Redskins, I would have probably maybe said St. Louis was going to win this game because they're at home. But after that performance, I'm taking Pittsburgh just because I've been more impressed with Pittsburgh because they've been competitive. They were really competitive against New England. and they beat the crap out of the Niners. And just seeing how bad the Rams played, and seeing how bad their offenses looked, or seeing how bad their defense looked in general, giving up 55 points in the last 2 games. Pittsburgh scored 55 points on their own. So again, Pittsburgh's high-powered offense is way too much for the Rams defense to handle, and I think too much for Nick Foles to compete with. So that's what I'm taking the Steelers to beat the Rams. Yeah, sorry guys, this might be my worst overall talking video yet, so please, no salty comments about my cough. I'm not feeling well. Hopefully in a week or two, as this cough comes out, I'll be able to talk a lot better. Jacksonville and New England. My 3 locks of the week are New England over Jacksonville, Indy over Tennessee, and Denver over Detroit. I'm taking New England to beat Jacksonville just because Jacksonville had a huge upset, or in my eyes. They played Miami, and Allen Robinson had a breakout game. He was just running by the Dolphins. Like, he was flying over them. They were hawks. The Dolphins were trying to jump up and get, and they couldn't even, they couldn't even reach. And it would jump, but those are the Dolphins. These are the New England Patriots. Tom Brady's never lost to them, I think, overall in his career. They're coming off a huge game over Buffalo that was very competitive. A lot more high scoring than I thought, 72 points. But again, just like he always does, like I said last week, Brady finds a way to win. And they did. And, by the way, if Aaron Williams, which I'm pretty sure he's not, or his family, or any Bills fans, I am praying for Aaron Williams. I saw that collision live, and I saw how he had his neck and his head, and that's always one of the more scary parts of the game, watching that. Seeing a guy not be able to move, and the sad thing was I don't think he did move. But the good thing I did hear, though, is that he does, after a while, he does have all the feeling in his extremities, which is great, but I do wish him a very quick and speedy recovery from whatever injury he has, and I hope maybe they can get back on the field this year. So that's a personal message from me to Aaron Williams and to any Bills fan and his family for a very quick and speedy recovery. But going back to the games, New England, it's New England. They're going there, and they're just way too talented. It's Brady. Brady's not Tannehill. Belichick's not Bradley. Gronk's not Thomas, and just New England just has way too much talent. So, as much as Jacksonville, congratulations on getting your first September win in 3 years. I did not know that until they pulled that up on the bottom, which is unbelievable. The Jacksonville hadn't won a game in September in 3 years. Unbelievable. But again, New England, it's just New England and Jacksonville. New England's just way too more talented. And I think that Miami, that shows how really bad Miami is compared to maybe how good Jacksonville is. So, again, that's what I'm taking the Patriots to beat the Jags. Jets over Eagles. Oh boy, this should be fun. I am taking the Jets just because I saw how pathetic that Philadelphia offense looked yesterday. My God. DeMarco Murray's carried the ball 21 times, and he's gotten 11 yards. People should realize that. In 2 games, he has 11 yards of rush. That's 6.5 yards a game. A game. One whole game, he gets about 6 yards. Yesterday, he had 13 carries for 2 yards. So, everybody that, you kind of, I've kind of buying into this too, like I've seen other people talk about. DeMarco was more of a product of that line, making huge holes, than his maybe actual ability. And also, I just think, again, Chip's having him run to the outside, and the left and right. He's a downhill runner. Just downhill. Okay, he doesn't do a lot of this. That's That's McCoy type stuff. But again, I'm just I was just incredibly disappointed in that. Defense, they played pretty well. You know, I feel bad for Kiko. People are saying that he's out for the year. That definitely doesn't help his cause, because now this is another kind of season-ending injury already in week 2, so now you can call him injury-prone, just like the quarterback, who, by the way, and just a quick thing about him, I think that after next week, if he has another garbage-type performance like this, you know, even though, again, I know he had, there were 3 turnovers by him. 2 of them you could say were coincidental. You know, I'm not going to blame him for the center. That was just a bad call by a veteran. Okay, and the tip you can blame. You know, it's a tip ball. You know, but again, Bradford continues to make these plays happen and cause them to happen. So, and everybody, you know, talks about Bradford, about how great he is. Like I said, if he has another garbage game or he has another garbage half, the Eagles need to put Mark Sanchez in the game, because Mark Sanchez right now is looking like Nick Foles in this offense compared to what Sam Bradford's done. Okay, and that's a fact to me. Again, I am going to point this out here. Tebow still is the most successful quarterback of that draft class, and he's not in the league, but Bradford is. Let's just remember that. But I digress, and people can harass me about that comment, or, you know, or my bias. If you know you think I'm kind of over bashing Bradford, but the Jets team has a lot more talent. They have all their talent pretty much around them, maybe besides Cromartie, who might not even play tonight. But if the Eagles receivers couldn't get open against Brandon Carr and Claiborne and Church, how do you think? What are the chances of them getting open then against Cromartie and Reeves? Slim to none. Okay, the Jets front 7 can get pressure on Brad. He's going to get knocked a few times in that game. I just see it. And I just feel that, again, Fitzpatrick can play enough. They have better receivers. That secondary is going to get burned. Byron Maxwell is going to get exposed again. And Byron Maxwell, there was this great picture of him smiling after the game. And I'm going, why? Why are you smiling? You just lost one of the most embarrassing games in Philadelphia Eagles history. The worst game Chip Kelly has ever coached. Okay? Against an eighth of a team, and you're smiling. Really good sign, Byron. But I'm taking the Jets because they have way more talented wide receivers compared to Philadelphia's corners. Fitzpatrick can battle with Bradford and do enough to win. And I just don't see this offense getting anything going against this really good Jets defense combined with this Jets offense. If they continue to struggle and everybody else continues to win, I can't believe I'm going to say this, the Washington Redskins might be able to win the NFC East off of talent and default. I can't believe I just said that, but after what I've seen out of the NFC East, with injuries in Dallas, with the Giants' inability to manage games, and the Eagles' just inability of talent, the Redskins seem like they're in the position to win the NFC East. But again, like I said, maybe I went on a diatribe about Bradford too long. The Jets are going to win this game because they have more talented wide receiver. I think they have the better quarterback. And like I said, if Matthews and Cooper couldn't get open against Carr and Claiborne, they definitely won't get open against Revis and Cromartie. So that's why I'm taking the Jets to beat the Eagles. Arizona over San Francisco. Arizona was really impressive. Again, they put up 48 points. Larry Fitzgerald had his first 3 touchdown game in a long time, which I was incredibly happy for him. True, they did lose Jay Cutler in the game. He went down with a hamstring injury. Jimmy Clausen went in, and I think they only scored 3. They scored no points when Clausen got in there. I was surprised. But I'm looking just at this game, and I'm looking at Arizona. I remember last year, this team beat the Niners in Week 3 in Arizona, so they've done this before. And I just think that after how bad San Francisco played, I had to look at him and go, you're not beating this Cardinal rolling machine, who I think is going to kick butt, and they probably are in the driver's seat right now to win the NFC West because they've been the most impressive team in the NFC West so far out of everybody. So again, I'm taking the Cardinals to beat the Niners because the Niners look so bad that with them going to Arizona and with the lack of talent that you saw them have, I think Palmer can definitely bomb them with talent he has, and just the Cardinals just have a better overall squad than what the Niners do right now, and I think right now are one of the best teams in the NFL. If you want to ask truth. So that's why I'm taking the Cardinals to beat the Niners. Seahawks over Bears. I think Seattle will finally get a win because the Bears have no offense. If Alshon Jeffrey can't play and Kevin White can't play again, if Alshon Jeffrey can't play again, the Bears have no receivers to throw to besides their tight end. And if their tight end gets about 100 yards, that's fine. That's not going to be enough. And if Jay Cutler doesn't play, then you have Jimmy Clausen throwing the ball, and they're at home. So even if Clausen, the Bears just have no offense, which is a good thing because the Seahawks defense, last night against the Packers, just didn't look like themselves again. I really think they need Cam Chancellor back. They need that boom leader in that locker room, but they're still not doing anything. And a game like this is going to help Pete Carroll's confidence because the Bears really have no offense to speak of. They'll be able to shut down Matt Forte because they were able to get Eddie Lacy out of the game after he stubbed his toe, and Starks did okay, but he had Rodgers behind him. Forte has Clausen and Cutler, and if Jeffrey can't play, they're screwed. So the Seahawks will just have way too much talent that it's not even going to be fair for the Bears receivers. So, and they're at home, and they've only lost over the last 3 years. They're 22-2 at home. That's not a stat I'm going to go against. So again, I'm taking Seattle just because Chicago has way too many injuries on offense that the Legion, and I'm going to use the NFL Game Day Finals term now, they're not the Legion of Boom anymore, or Boom right now, they're just the Legion of, because they don't have Chancellor, has enough talent around them to stop the woeful, injury-plagued Chicago offense. So congrats for the Seahawks for getting their first win. That's why I'm taking the Seahawks to beat the Bears. Buffalo over Miami. Buffalo's looked more impressive than Miami. Miami losing to Jacksonville put a huge eyesore on their resume because that's a game they should not have lost. Tannehill looked erratic. He wasn't making a lot of great decisions. It was up and down, and I just was going, eh. And again, Buffalo had an overall great game, overall good game. There was a huge delay for Williams, but obviously everybody knows why. But I just think Buffalo's defense, if they can get through that defensive line, they're going to be able to get through that Miami offensive line and get to Tannehill. He's going to struggle. I remember they're going to be motivated because I remember Miami beat them 22-9 last year in Miami. And I just think that Tyrod right now looks a little bit better than Tannehill. Tyrod made some good throws. He did have 3 interceptions, which isn't good. But again, it was only his second game, and they were tip balls. So, I'm going to get Tyrod a little more slack. But I'm taking Buffalo just because over the last 2 weeks, Buffalo's looked a way more impressive unit than what Miami has. Because, again, Miami only could get a 7-point win over the Redskins to begin the year. So now you put that on top of Jacksonville, them losing to Jacksonville, go, how good is this Dolphins team actually? So, I'm taking the Bills. They have better talent at running back. They just have more talent at each position that I think going into Miami, it's not going to make that much of a difference on Sunday. Should be kind of a lopsided game. And another blow to Miami's confidence. That's why I'm taking the Bills to beat the Dolphins. Denver over Detroit. Peyton Manning, in that defense, they had a heck of a game against Kansas City, and I felt pretty good. because everybody in the YouTube prognosticator page, mostly everybody in the country, took the Chiefs to win, and they did. So, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to brag that much. But when I look at Denver and Detroit, I see Detroit as just kind of a huge disappointment. It's frustrating, but I just see that after how many turnovers the Lions had, they had about 3 or 4. Stafford threw about 2 interceptions. They had about 2 fumbles. If the Broncos could cause Jamal Charles to fumble twice and cause Alex Smith to throw 2 interceptions, which he hadn't done in I think 2 or 3 years, can you imagine what they can do against Detroit? My God, Detroit could have the NFL record for turnovers by the end of the night. And again, I'm just going to use what I said last time. These two teams have about equal talent in most areas, except in one way. Denver has Manning, Detroit has Stafford. 2 former number 1 overall picks, but obviously you take Peyton in this situation every time over Matthew Stafford. So that's why I'm taking the Denver Broncos to beat the Lions. And lastly, the Packers over the Chiefs. I feel bad for the Packers. They don't have Lacey, which could be big. Which should be pretty big if he can't play on Monday night against Kansas City. But it's kind of the same thing of Green Bay has the better receiving core, and the overall teams are about equal. KC's defense is a bit better than Green Bay's. I will give them that. But if you gave me Aaron Rodgers or Alex Smith, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers to win this game. And also, I just think, again, Green Bay, Rodgers hasn't, thrown an interception in 3 years. Still, he threw another 3 touchdowns, so that's 28 touchdowns over the last 9 games at home compared to 0 interceptions, which is phenomenal. And I just don't see, again, it's kind of like KC got put in another Denver type situation. Two equally decent teams, but one is the better quarterback. And in that situation, again, go with that. So, those are my thoughts for this week. Like I said, guys, I got a couple minutes here. I'm sorry for all the coughing and the drink. I pulled a drink out. I had to kind of clear my throat a little bit for the video. It stinks, but I hope over the next week or 2, I can get better and I can talk more clearly without all this coughing. But that's it. So like, comment, rate, subscribe. I'd like to thank everybody that commented on my last video and talked about my Monday videos and Tuesday videos. I got more positive feedback, so that's why I'm doing another one now. And that's it. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy owners, and fellow YouTube prognosticators. I'm going to put a link to YouTube Facebook prognosticator page under my videos. So for anybody out there that watched my videos, please check it out and join our group. We're almost at 100 members, which is awesome. And I'd love to, if you want to have more in-depth conversation, I'd love to talk to you guys and just give thoughts. So that's it. So until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Till then, so long.